Ready to go? All right, another week. Headed down to play a great North Carolina team. I think our kids had a great attitude all week, and my message to them after the game was, the Pitt standards, just going out and playing football the way it's supposed to be played. We played some good football at times. We've not played our best game yet, and we're going to have to play our best game to get a victory down there on the road in Chapel Hill. So it's a really good football team. May is a really good quarterback. He's got weapons everywhere. They're talented, and defensively, we're going to have to play really good. We're going to have to score points and keep that offense off the field. Questions? Okay.
I saw you trying to get up. But Pat, what does Drake make you that do so well? That's got this offense going. He's a young quarterback, and oftentimes I think it's tough to identify. If this is just the one thing that they do right, or if this is just the beginning of finding that out. What have you seen when you studied him?
You know what? The guy is the first thing I'll say is he's a first-round quarterback. Okay, you can mark that down now. Redshirt freshman. He will be a first-round quarterback. I have no doubt about it. He's got the size. He's got the athletic ability. He's got great vision. He's calm in the pocket. I mean, he just goes from here and then over there, and it's like, did he even look over there? He's just really talented. I mean, he's a natural quarterback, in my opinion. He can scramble. He can run. He can do it all. Malik Cunningham was a great athlete last week. He didn't, he threw it well against us, a couple fade balls, but he was not quite the quarterback. When I watched, last year, as good as their quarterback was, if he didn't feel good, he just, would tuck it and run or get hit and sacked. This guy is not like this. This guy's elusive. He's really smooth in the pocket. I mean, there's times where he's, just shuffling to the left away from it, and he feels the pressure well. I mean, he's really elusive. I mean, he's as good a quarterback. We're talking as a defense staff. He's as good. He's in the top two. We kind of compared him. We're just discussing who is this guy like? He's like a Trevor Lawrence is what I think he is. He can throw every ball. He's not afraid to put it out there. He's talented.
How do you combat a guy who combines athleticism with the ability to process the field, like you said, he might be looking to the right sideline. Oh no, he's looking down the left seat.
Well, the NCAA will not let us play with 12 guys, so we're gonna have to go play football. Okay, we got to, we got to go do what we do. Okay, again, I think he's talented. Made a mistake back in 2002 when I was at I don't know if I've told you the story. 2002, I'm at Northern Illinois. We got to play this quarterback, number 7, Ben Roethlisberger. You guys probably know who he is. May have told you a story. He threw for 525 yards, the most yards he ever threw, and we had to change the coverage up. I wasn't the coordinator, thank God, but we changed the coverage up so many times. We just had said, we can't defend this guy. To your point, he's too good. We're gonna have to confuse him. All we did was confuse ourselves. I took the job 7 days before spring ball in 2003, and I was like, am I gonna confuse him in spring ball, or are we just gonna, just bite the bullet and our kids will have no confidence? So we went out and played our base defense against them, and played really, really good. Against him in spring ball every day, to the point where the head coach at the time, Terry Hepner, wasn't very happy. So that's an old school story. Just keep it simple. We've got to do what we do. You have some tweaks here and there for who their guys are. Josh Downs is a good football player, and their tight ends are athletic. I mean, they got good football players.
Pat, you mentioned that.
I'm sorry. He's a redshirt freshman, and first-year starter. Do you notice any uncertainties that the kid's that age? He's only 19 years old.
I just think he's just I think he's really good. I mean, do I notice what, Jerry?
I didn't notice him any uncertainties or any.
The guy's thrown 24 TDs and 3 interceptions. I mean, there's not a whole lot of uncertainty there. I mean, he's making good decisions. 24-3. I mean, that's.
He's pretty good on his years then.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think he got held back a couple years. I don't know how old he is.
You mentioned Monday that one of your receivers went down with something before Saturday's game. How have you seen maybe the reserve receivers respond to possible opportunities this week in practice, just with less depth?
Good. We just got to keep it simple for him. I mean, that's the problem. It's just you got less depth at that position. We just got to keep it simple, and it's not it's not good, but it's the cards that we've been dealt, and we'll find a way to get through it. We hung it long enough. We had a chance a week ago with 341 or whatever heck was in the game when. We had a chance. You got that far, so we'll be even more prepared this week just because we can practice. I mean, we didn't practice anything else. We're stuck. We're stuck at the half with an issue. We were stuck, in pregame with an issue that we thought would get resolved before the game started, but it didn't.
Pat, you brought up Josh Downs. Their second receiver, Antoine Green, he's also averaging, I think it's over 90 yards a game. What makes
Number
him
three.
so effective?
He's their deep ball guy. I mean, just again, you got Josh. Last year it was like we focused on Josh Downs. He was getting the ball. Now, I mean, he's spreading the ball out. It's all over the place. And Green is jersey number 3. I mean, he's someone to keep an eye on. You got to cover them all. I mean, you can't just double this guy, because they got weapons everywhere. So
Will we see some of Barden and Thompson in this game?
you will see, yes, for sure. Barden will start.
Will Cam Guest be starting at punter again for you guys?
Yes.
What kind of improvements or what have you seen from Barton? I mean, what have you seen in his progression?
He's had a good week. I mean, he's had a really good week. And again, I think I told you, we've got to keep it. Like, he's got to play one position. We can't ask him to play 2 and 3. It's like I tell our coaches all the time. Like, these guys, they come down here for 2-hour practice, an hour meeting, 3 hours a day. Okay, we're here from 6:30 to 10:30. Okay, they come for 3 hours, and we think it's easy. It's not easy. There's a lot of details. It's not just run a post if you're disposition. I mean, there's converting routes versus different coverages and all these different things that have to be done perfectly. So it's not just knowing a position and what the route is. It's how do you convert those routes. And again, he didn't get to practice it last week. We put him in a bad position. It's our fault as coaches, but we didn't have any options. I guess the option was to put Gavin in there, which is what we did. But we're trying to put the best football player on the field, which was obviously Jay Barton.
When did football become this complicated?
Anytime I guess you went and put more receivers on the field. Back in the day when there were 2 tight ends and 3 backs, and you just kind of ran the veer, like Georgia Tech ran a few years ago. It's always been complicated. Even back then, it's just more complicated for the offensive linemen. I mean, the game's always been complicated. If you we should have one of you guys just sit in a meeting and just sit and be with us the entire week to see what goes into the preparation. Jerry, you might be a little too young for that. I don't know if you can handle the hours. You'd come home after night 1 like, I need a backup. You'd be asking for a backup. But it would be a great story just to see the behind the scenes, all the details. And again, you couldn't even get it in a week. You'd have to say, okay, I want O-line this week. Next week, you'd have to spend a season. They'd have you come write a book.
Pat, we've always heard about when Kenny was here, a lot of things that he would do, not just on the field, but it was behind the scenes, talking to guys, leading team meetings, doing extra things to be better, to help his teammates be better. Have you seen Keaton? He's not Kenny. No one's trying to say that he is Kenny. He has to do everything the way Kenny does. But have you seen him do things behind the scenes, do enlighten us, like stuff that he does to say, hey guys, I have to be better, we have to be better. Let's do these things to be better this week. Yeah, I mean, I'm not in those meetings with the team. I let the captains take care of those meetings, and so the captains, leave, 3 times a week. Matter of fact, they get them after practice today. All the captains out there, and we do have another captain this week, Marcus Minor. Since Carter Ward's out, felt like last week we gave Jared Wayne. I don't know if you guys noticed, he went out for a coin toss. So Jared Wayne was our captain last week. So we got game captains just to try to get more leadership on offense. So Marcus Minor will be our game captain this week as we head down to Chapel Hill. But to go back to your question, they'll do their stuff. That's for them to talk to the team. And but he works his tail off. He's in here all day too. And if you had to say there's one position that Kenny was the same way, and quarterbacks have to be, is they spend an awful lot of time in this building. Not as much as a coach, but way more than a lot of players do.
Pat, sort of building off that, you said something interesting on Monday that was interesting, sort of comparing what Keaton's doing to what Kenny's going through next door, first-year starter. The difference there is that Kenny's got a 4-year contract and maybe with an option for 5 for the Steelers. You've got Keaton for 2 years. When you take a grad transfer, or an older transfer in and ask him to start right away, do you worry that you're not building for 2 or 3 years down the road, you're building for now? So what's the sort of thought process and the risk reward?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking, you're looking for great players, and everybody picks it up a little bit different and all that. I mean, it's not easy for anybody. It wasn't easy for Nathan Peterman either, but Nathan Peterman was a good take, and he's still playing in the league. And it's better to have a guy that can make the plays and make the throws and develop them. That's what you want. I mean, you'd rather always take a player, over a guy that maybe, just I'm going to develop. He's going to get good. You guys would go crazy in here, right? But I would do it all over again. I mean, I think that he's very, very talented, and he's got another year. I would imagine in another year he's going to be a heck of a lot better than he is this year.
Do you worry about him, because I'm sure is even more aware than you of how much time he has left before he, before he has a chance to go to the next level. So do you worry about him pressing? That it's like he,
Maybe.
gets
I mean,
in a hurry?
I've never really thought about it, well, but I mean, you hope not. Just you got to play within the system and don't, I think he's a cautious guy. I think last week maybe he said I'm done being cautious, and he went to take a shot, which sometimes happens. You got to learn from those mistakes, and that sometimes happens. They all do it. I mean, they all want to make plays, and I want a guy who wants to make plays. So we appreciate the work and effort he puts into it because he's detailed.
With the way that this is, one last one, I apologize. With the way that this is going, do you fear that you get a freshman quarterback and the odds that this guy's going to be in your program in 4 years is
I fear,
lower than
yes,
ever?
I feared that a few years ago. That's what we're into right now. And again, when I first got here, we got Nathan Peterman. I think we had one scholarship quarterback. The quarterback room, the board was like, there was nothing on the board in here, right there. Matter of fact, that was the quarterback board right on, on the other side of that. As far as just the position, it was like every other position had guys on the board. I'm like, what are we doing here? That was, we had Chad Voitek, and that was it. But I worry about that for sure because everybody's recruiting transfers. Why go get a freshman quarterback when you can go? I still want to recruit high school football players and then fill the void with what you need at other positions. I mean, I think Nate Yarnell's going to be a really good player. We've got guys that we think are going to be good football players. So.
Well, building off of that, because I was going to go a different direction, but before we get there, I want to ask more about the process of evaluating transfers. Has that forced you guys to either add staff or retrain people on your staff to assess guys in the transfer portal? Because I know basketball had to add, I think, some staff members to help with that in this university.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had anybody numbers-wise. I think we don't have to retrain them to have an eye of what a player looks like. Graham, Adam do a great job leading that thing. Carlo, just as far as just the organization and knowing who they are. It's looking for football players, but looking for the right ones. We did a thing last week, just because we were talking about it. We've hit pretty good. I want to say over 78% of our transfers have come in and been starters. When you look at it, and the numbers have increased every year. I got the stats sitting on my desk, and each guy that has been a player or a bust. I won't talk about the bust, but there's always going to be a couple. But that's a pretty high percentage. I mean, you guys could probably go back through it in the last and put your own thing together and go, okay, that guy's a good player. Whether it's a DJ Turner or whatever. But the most important thing is we've been very picky with who we've taken in there, because whether it's a starting quarterback for 2 years or he's you want to bring guys that are going to be good program guys. And the other thing, I mean, you look at the guys we brought in, not only on the player, we haven't missed on the character guys that ruin the locker room. That's that's number one. You get a great player that's that's a problem. That's a problem.
Is quarterback different though, because there's only one of those on the field at one time? You got 5 linemen. If you got a transfer comes in, he's not good. You got
always the problem.
You got dudes backing them up.
No question about that. That's always the problem when it's that. That's it's the same thing at running back a little bit. It's like the dude, and I think we got a few dudes, but it's always a problem. Like, who is the guy? And there's only one quarterback. There's usually only one tailback. We've done a good job at trying to utilize the ones we have too. So
When I know that your philosophy is always go 1-0 this week, focus on just this week.
Mm-hmm.
But is there an extra emphasis? I mean, you guys are facing North Carolina. They're at the top of your division. If you lose this game, you're practically 4 games behind them, and that kind of kills ACC Coastal hopes. Has there been a different message or emphasis this week as far as hey guys, let's really lock in?
Still we want to know. We don't want to be 0-1. Okay, that could be the wrong message. But they know what's there. I mean, I don't have to spell it out for them. I don't have to write it on a piece of paper and say, by the way, they know how critical another game is, and nobody's beat us. We beat ourselves. That's what that's been the message. You can say Tennessee beat us, but if we were healthy at quarterback, even with our backup quarterback, I believe we win that football game too. We beat ourselves. Nobody's beat us. We're undefeated, really. Okay, that's how I look at it. We are, and gotta leave it at that.
Pat, did you read about the interim coach at Nebraska?
No.
They got a verbal commitment from the #1 kid in Nebraska. Somebody asked the coach at a news
Mm-hmm.
conference like this about that, mentioned the kid's name, and the coach, I can't remember the interim coach's name now, he plays Scott Frost.
Frazier? Whatever.
And the coach repeated the kid's name. Yeah, we got so-and-so. And then I guess he told compliance and all that. I understand it's an NCAA violation, but my question is, what's the harm? If you or any coach would say, okay, or tweet out, welcome so-and-so, what's the
We
harm?
tweet it out anyway. We just can't comment on it. So
Well,
we're not allowed to say anything, but we can tweet it out,
I
which
know,
is,
why can't you say, like,
you know what, if I was in charge of the NCAA, okay, I could really tell you, maybe someday when but no, I don't even want that. I want nothing to do with it. But, it's the same, it's the same in a lot of different professions. It's just it's one of those NCAA rules. You can't do it, you shouldn't do it, and that poor guy,
Is the
he's
kid
an interim head coach. Did they slap his wrist, slap his hand? What's he gonna get for that? They gonna penalize him? I mean, it's,
Is there any harm to it? Does the kid feel any undue pressure because the coach says, welcome so-and-so?
because I don't know. It's a dumb rule.
Do you expect that rule to change?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of things change. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, you're allowed to pay him, but you can't say his name. I mean, you're allowed to tweet about him, but you can't say glad to have you. That's a violation. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the NCAA rule book is this thick. Like, there's a lot of rules that that's an easy one. But, poor guy.
One last one. Do you think careers like Kenny's are going to be the exception and not the rule going forward in terms of quarterbacks, in terms of guys that are going to be there for 3 or 4 years?
I do, unfortunately. I mean, I could really see May after next year going, he's in his 3rd year, he has another year like he's having this year and be gone in 3 years, which is bad for college football, as you guys know, because then every 3 years instead of every 5 years, you guys are in here saying, who's this new quarterback? What's he doing wrong? Why is he doing this? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, you'd like 5 years of it, even though we got it, Kenny's junior year and sophomore year, you guys, he stunk, but, in your opinion, I mean, Kenny was a great player, and you wish there's going to be less boundaries. Put it that way. I mean, I think they got to be in college for 3 years. I think it's going to go down to 2. I think it might. I could see things changing where they don't even have to go to college. They just go right to the NFL, which I know the NFL doesn't want. But I mean, you're holding these kids back from going to the league like they want to.
Have you ever seen a high school player able to go into the NFL right after he graduates high school?
It's going to take them a couple years. I've never. Obviously, it's never happened, but.
Right.
I could see it happening. I could see it happen if these GMs want to take that chance. I mean, he's undeveloped, but you know what?
Michael Parsons, maybe?
Now the NFL scouts got to recruit all these guys. They're not only worried about college; they got to go down to high school level. And it's not like basketball where there's 5 guys playing. There's a lot of players to look at. The personnel departments in the NFL would have to get really big to go scour the country in high school and find out who those top guys are. That would be a mess. They probably don't like that either.
Was there? I think Jerry's question was there any guys that you saw while you were recruiting? You think, well, this dude could play in the league right now at 18?
I'd say no. I mean, that you would. I mean, it's a hard game. I mean, there's guys that I thought, and I would never say it. Like when you get a class of 20, like that's the dude. That dude is a lot of times not the guy. You're like, that's the best guy in our class. And all of a sudden he gets here, and you're like 2 years later, you're like, are you kidding me? And it's risky for the NFL. Same way. You better go out and do it. It's a sport. It's not like basketball. It's a different sport. But it's going to go to that. There's no question. I don't know when, but it's coming.
Who's been the biggest surprise, like the opposite of that? The guy that you were like looking in the class and you said, okay, he's a guy, he's not the dude.
Gavin Bartholomew. I mean, no question about it. You guys heard that story. I mean, the beard story. Not very good football. And I was like, then when I saw his beard, I was like, we're taking that guy. He's been pretty good. So, Corey, you might have a chance, man. He had a beard like you.
I got you. Star linebacker. Pat, you got Rodney Hammond back last week.
Yeah.
Pretty solid performance, all things considered. Just your overall thoughts on him coming back and providing that boost for Izzy.
It's good to have 2 guys in there, that's for sure. Now I'm not talking 2 at a time, but just to be able to know you have Rodney back. He was a good player, and we haven't seen him since the opener. He was strong, he was physical, and again I think he's going to get better every week. Got to keep him healthy, but it gives you a chance to keep Izzy healthy as well. And I tell you what, Vince has done a nice job. We didn't have a great game against Georgia Tech. Cost us in that game, and Sebo. I love Sebo too. I mean, just he works his tail off. He's a good player too. So I feel really good with that running back position.
Yeah, we talked to Tyler Wiltz the other day. Does he always have positive? Does he always?
He's a great kid. I mean, he's a great kid. He's just, you know, sometimes these guys come from different places. You know, sometimes when you come from high school and you come to Pitt or you go somewhere else, you don't know how good you have it until, you know, but, you know, he's been through different programs where he was treated differently, fed differently, or not fed at all. I mean, just the whole culture. And, you know, like I told you, one day out there during the summer, he stood out there and he goes, Coach, how do you do it? You know, like these guys took me in so fast. I mean, he is a positive guy. He's always he's a great kid. I mean, that's a you know, again, you talk about you could get a good, you know, linebacker from the FCS, but like character-wise, like that guy fits in our locker room. He's a good dude. And, you know, he could be a great player, run around, make tackles, but if you're not enjoying coaching these guys, it's a mistake. And, you know, sometimes you don't enjoy coaching them and it's not fun and it's like the guy gives you chest pains as a coach or he's a coach killer. We don't have those, and that's what makes this job easy. Anything else?
Thanks,
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks.